It is finally here. The most unpredictable main event of the year. Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev. Man, I've been waiting since it's been announced for this fight to go down tomorrow night. Not only is the main event the most exciting of the year, this card has some bangers. Today we're only predicting the main card, but on the prelims, you got Khamzat's teammate that showcased himself on the Dana White Contender Series earlier this week. Michael Olazejchek, Jessica Andrade, former champion, the Gooner Chase Hooper, Edson Barbosa. This is a really decent prelim. But I've got some takes for this card. Some people might not like them. Me personally, I might not even like them myself, but I'm going with my brain and not my heart for this card. We'll start at the bottom here with Kai ASUKURA versus Tim Elliott. And the fact that Kai ASUKURA is ranked 15th in the flyweight division after putting on a decent fight against one of the most dominant champions in the UFC today is kind of outrageous. I feel like he just outmatches Tim Elliott. I remember I was watching ASUKURA versus Pantoja, and obviously I thought Pantoja was going to win because I think he's a top 5 fighter in the UFC today. But I just thought, man, I haven't seen anyone as quick as Kai ASUKURA, and they're throwing them against poor Tim Elliott. I know he's a crafty little vet. He's got a good ground game. He can stand and bang. Obviously, he's bushy. He might have a little bit of dad strength and had the best Instagram story of the week. But he's never beat anyone of significance. He's lost to Joseph Benavidez, lost to Davison Figueiredo, lost to Brandon Royval, and obviously these names are all great fighters. But I feel like Kai ASUKURA is just one step below those guys and a bunch of steps ahead of Tim Elliott. I don't know, man. I think Kai ASUKURA being matched up with Tim Elliott is kind of a crime. I'm gonna go Kai. I'm gonna go Kai by 30-27 decision. I think he's going to piece up Tim Elliott while also being able to defend takedowns and being able to defend any of Tim Elliott's offensive ground game. I just think it's a crime. I love Tim Elliott, but I have such I have high praise for Kai ASUKURA. I don't get it. I don't get this matchup. I'm going Kai ASUKURA. I think he's going to put on a show. Up next, this is one of the fights where I have to go with my brain over my heart. Because I was one of the dudes that went Michael Page over Shara Bullet. I just thought he was going to piece him up. I thought he was too crafty. His elbows, his spin kicks, just everything about Michael Page on the feet was better than Shara Bullet's. But now he goes up against someone like Jared Cannonier, who's got the heavier man's build. This guy was a heavyweight at one point with a little bit of success. And now he's at 185 facing a dude that is a 170er. Michael Page he's a little bit taller, but their intangibles are right around the same. Michael Page doesn't have a huge reach advantage, not a huge leg reach. I just think Jared Cannonier has a little bit more pop. He was piecing up Imavov, and I'm not a fan of him, but he was piecing him up before he got knocked out. And MVP doesn't have the knockout power that Imavov has. So I see this going to a decision. My heart says MVP 29-28. But my brain says Jared Cannonier is going to stun MVP in the first round and coast to a 29-28 decision from there. Now on to the feature fight with Jeff Neal and the always dangerous Carlos Prates. Coming off of a loss, a pretty dominant loss, might I say, to Ian Machado Gary. I'm not going to discount Carlos Prates because of that. Because I also think Ian Gary is one of the premier fighters at 170. He's a future champion. I just think it showed that when Carlos Prates gets stunned, he's kind of a little bit defensive. He's a little bit slow to get going after that. I don't think Jeff Neal has that type of pop or that type of accuracy to put Carlos Prates on his back foot. But it's something to note that if this fight goes to a decision, Jeff Neal could pull off a gritty win. At the same time, though, Jeff Neal's a heavy bag. I think there's a world where Carlos Prates just pieces him up and gets him out of there in the first round. But I also think there's a world where Carlos Prates might be a little bit slow to get going. Slow to get going in the way that he puts Jeff Neal out in the third by an on-the-fence knockout. This is a really big fight for Carlos Prates, by the way. He needs to remind people that he's this dangerous killer because it just wasn't there against Ian Gary. Obviously because he's one of the best fighters in 170. But Carlos Prates has the potential to be there too. My official prediction for this bout is Jeff Neal is going to see the danger tattoo on Carlos Prates' shin. It's going to stun him in the second round. And then Prates is just going to tee off against Jeff Neal on the fence for a TKO. On to the co-main event between Lerone Murphy and Aaron Pico. I have my thoughts on this one. I'm not torn. I know who's going to win. I think Lerone Murphy is going to win, and here's why. Aaron Pico's an explosive guy. But when you look at Lerone Murphy, he was in the cage with Josh Emmett and got the job done. And I think Josh Emmett, I'm going to use some MMA math here. I think Josh Emmett puts Aaron Pico's freaking lights out. I don't get how Aaron Pico joins from Bellator and is one fight away from a title. He's 13-4. That's not a great record considering he's in Bellator. I'm sorry, but Lerone Murphy walks into Bellator and he's a featherweight champion. You know who else does? And I just brought him up? Josh Emmett. Josh Emmett walks into Bellator and he's the scariest dude to ever grace that freaking organization. I think Lerone Murphy just gets this done by a UD. I don't see any other outcome for this fight. I don't see Lerone Murphy knocking out Aaron Pico. I don't see him submitting him, and I sure as hell don't see Aaron Pico winning this. This is the most unpredictable title shot since Ilya Topuria and Max Holloway. I know people are really big on Khamzat. I know, I get it. He's arguably one of the most dangerous fighters in UFC history. And he's definitely the most dangerous on the ground that this sport has ever seen. He can get you out in the first round via ground and pound or even by submission. And we saw what happened to Robert Whittaker. But if anyone in the organization is going to beat Khamzat, it's going to be DDP. When he fought Robert Whittaker, I just thought he was going to take him out. I thought Robert Whittaker was just going to knock his ass out. Turns out it was the opposite. Goes up to fight Sean Strickland. Pieces him up for 2 fights in a row. And guess what? He gets Izzy, arguably the best striker 185's ever seen, and pieces him up. I think Dreykus' cardio is better. I think his striking is better. And I think if he outlasts the first round from Khamzat Chimaev, he coasts to a 4th round knockout. It sounds crazy, and maybe I'm underrating Khamzat. Maybe I am. I just saw him dominate Robert Whittaker. But I also saw him arguably lose to Kamaru Usman, who was fighting at 170, comes up on short notice, and takes the last 2 rounds against Khamzat. He was piecing him up on the feet too. And I think Dreykus is a damn good striker. Better than Kamaru Usman. I could be completely wrong. And I could be underrating Khamzat Chimaev. And I'll own it. I'll own it. Because I think Khamzat, if he gets this done, he's a top 3 fighter in the UFC. But there's just something that's telling me, since even before this fight has been announced, that DDP is going to get the job done. So those are my picks. Make sure to like and subscribe. Maybe drop a comment. UFC predictions every single card. Might mix in some baseball, basketball, and hockey in here as well. So peace out.